Hi, everyone. I hope you all had a good Thanksgiving, whether with family or just with phone calls and video chats. The council chose last month that we would have a virtual service Thanksgiving weekend because we often have low attendance, but also with the news about new strains of COVID, it seemed like a little caution was warranted after everyone has been visiting family. Along with the video of my sermon, I'm circulating a link to an Advent song shared by the UCC. They've taken a familiar song and added new lyrics, and we'll have new verses each week to go with the candle lighting, and a new song named Grateful by a couple singers I've been following for a few years, a Sikh rapper and a Christian singer. I've shared a couple of their songs before. So to start, we're just going to read the prayers for the candle lighting. And we'll pretend this is my Advent candle. I don't know how well you can tell, but it is actually lit. The light isn't showing up very well on my camera. Alternate verses to O Come, Emmanuel. O come and be the hope in all our lives. Though chaos and confusion still survive, we know the path of hate all too well. We need our God with us, Emmanuel. Rejoice, rejoice, Emmanuel shall come to us, and all things shall be well. When the world seems scary, when we try to escape and hide, the Holy invites us to confront fear that we may find hope. Where do we find hope these days? Amen. I don't know about you, but it feels like this year has flown by. It still feels like we were just figuring out how to have in-person services for Christmas Eve, and suddenly we've had Thanksgiving and Advent is starting again. Things have changed. Vaccines are widely available, but it also seems like very little has changed. New variants of the virus and concerns over masks and safety and all kinds of disruptions. Advent is a time of waiting and preparation, but that often makes me wonder about how we view waiting. Is waiting about anticipation, hopeful excitement over something that's about to happen? Is it dread or worry or uncertainty? Do we think of waiting as if it's active, something we can do, or passive, and we can't do anything to prepare, we just have to wait for it to happen? A few weeks ago, we got to see the show The Band's Visit at Shays. The brother-in-law of one of my friends wrote the music and lyrics, which made it even more fun. The basic plot, and I'm not giving away any spoilers here, is that an Egyptian police band is traveling in Israel, but ends up in the wrong place because the two towns have similar names. The confusion is made worse because of the accents, but I don't know, this sounds kind of familiar. Like telling someone to go to a certain street in Tonawanda, but not being clear whether it's the town, the city, or North Tonawanda, or for that matter, the Tonawanda Reservation. After the initial mix-up, the opening song has the performers stand on a slowly rotating platform and sing a song about waiting. I'm not going to sing it, but I'm going to share some of the words. Waiting. What's new here? You're waiting. I'm waiting. Because that's what we do here. Same as we do every day. For something, I don't know, to happen. No, just something different to happen. Just waiting for something to change. Sometimes it feels like we're moving in a circle, around and around with the same scenery going by. But no one's complaining. We're experts at waiting. You know what I think? There's two kinds of waiting. There's the kind where you're expecting something new or even strange. But this kind of waiting, you keep looking off out into the distance, even though you know the view is never going to change. You wait. As we get closer to Christmas, these words resonate for me. The last year and a half have involved a lot of waiting. Waiting for it to be safe to do things. Waiting for answers. Waiting for the vaccine. Waiting to go back to normal. And certainly some things have been out of our hand. So at some of those times, it has been a lot of frustrated, impatient, powerless waiting. But even so, we haven't been completely powerless. As I've been saying since the beginning of the pandemic, there have been things that we could do and have done during the pandemic, during our powerlessness. We can make phone calls. We can run errands and get groceries for people who are shut in. We can make masks. Sandy and others have made so many masks during this pandemic. At St. Peter's, we've worked to make sure that Rainey's Closet was provided for and could stay open during the pandemic, even if it meant sometimes having to prepare bags of clothes that could be picked up outside with no contact. And certainly paying attention to how some folks fell through the cracks even before the pandemic, but even more so afterwards. I know that I still felt powerless and frustrated a lot of the time because the big picture was out of my control. And sometimes even the little picture was out of my control. And things were made more complicated by the unhelpful behavior of some of our neighbors. And certainly I've felt frustration sometimes at seeing people not be careful and the impact that that has had on vulnerable people. People I know and people that friends have known who've gotten sick, sometimes because other people weren't safe. Even though we can't fix the big picture, we still have the opportunity to do something and change the world around us. And in the process, we've built new connections. During the summer of 2020, I drove around every week delivering food for a new food pantry. And I made it to places in the village and town that I've never been to in 16 years. I sometimes see those streets now and think to myself, I remember being there. I met new people, new clergy colleagues. I learned things about people around me that I didn't know. And I saw creative things that people did to boost spirits, posting signs about silly walks, hopscotch games on sidewalks, even other chalk drawings. I certainly spent a lot of time in my garden and learned some new hobbies along the way. And along the way, I've had time to think and dream and hope. As I've said before, when we do go back, I hope that we can hold on to the lessons, the awareness, even the awareness of things that have gone badly in the past and those who've been left out. In the last week or so, I've seen a lot of articles and heard people talking about Thanksgiving, about the traditions and the joy of bringing family together, but also about the story of Thanksgiving itself. The story of the pilgrims that many of us were taught as children doesn't live up to the actual historical record. Because in fact, our pilgrim ancestors, and I say that intentionally because as members of the UCC, they are our spiritual ancestors. They often treated the Native Americans horribly and did not view them as friends or as the equals that the old Thanksgiving stories would make it sound. Those historical records were twisted later, sometimes for political purposes, to send a message that overlooked a horrible history. We can still celebrate parts of our history. We can certainly celebrate traditional meals of turkey and stuffing and cranberry sauce and everything, but we also need awareness of the bad parts and a willingness not to perpetuate the bad parts. The idea of taking time out of our schedule to be thankful for what we have, that's very important. But it's not something that justifies twisting around history and in fact lying about what really happened just in order to be thankful. And frankly, also thankfulness should not be limited to one day out of the year. So it's important to be aware of how we tell our stories. Today's gospel reading, and I'll share a link to the readings. I won't force you to listen to a video of me reading it all. Talk about Jesus' statements about the coming kingdom, the end of time, the coming troubles, all kinds of scary thoughts. He speaks of people being worried and speculating about when the end will come, and a lot of fear and confusion. In some ways, it sounds a lot like today. Then and now, there were different voices with different explanations, and many people saying, just look at it this way and you'll understand. And in all of that, Jesus shares the symbol of a fig tree. I actually started growing a fig tree last summer from a twig that I got from someone in a gardening group. It was pretty surprising because for the longest time, it was just a plain bare twig. It did eventually grow well and survived the summer in my garden. Right now it's in the basement because that's what the instructions I found about what to do with it. But it grew very well from a very slow start. So using the fig tree as a sign of hope and waiting is suitable in some ways. It's a sign of readiness and awareness, but not necessarily the clear sign that some people are looking for to say, yes, today is the day that it's happening. There are certainly times in life when we're on high alert and we're ready for something to happen right away, waiting for someone to go into labor, waiting for an important phone call or piece of news. But staying on that high alert all the time is stressful. When Jesus talks about being prepared, and when Christian leaders over the centuries have talked about being prepared, they're talking, I think, about something different. More like the Scouts with their favorite slogan, to be prepared, having what you need, thinking about what you will need, being ready and knowing what to do, being prepared for lots of possibilities, but not being stressed specifically over any single one. But what do we do while we wait? We can pray. We can pay attention. We can care for those around us. We can be patient, as hard as that can seem. And I think most importantly, we can hope. Hope that something better is possible, despite the way that things seem. Hope that Jesus is with us, teaching us, preparing us for a new way of life, not just in the future, but here and now. And that by following Jesus, we can transform the world around us. And so hope that, unlike the song I shared a minute ago, something will change, and soon, and for the better. Emmanuel, God with us, incarnate one, embodied one, send us forth with confidence to seek you where you dwell, in the signs, in the moon and the sun and stars, in the turbulence of our lives, and in unexpected hope. Amen. I look forward to seeing many of you in person next week.